Oh, kia ora everyone. Thank you for joining us in this awesome chat, which is our Kōrero Café for Kaiparahuarahi No.4, defining youth work. Hopefully you guys are tuning in and you're able to share where you're coming in from. Or you just want to send a special shout out to those coming from Tamaki Makaurau. We love that you're here, and hopefully this will bring a little bit of brightness to lockdown, and you're doing massive work for us in the rest of the country. And just want to start off by saying my name is Tanya. I'm from India. I've been in New Zealand for 18 years. My current work is with Shakti, which is a culturally specialized family violence organization. And I'm working with women and children to provide safety, and also doing some youth facilitation with creating social change. I just want to start and open the space with a karakia so that everyone's feeling welcome. As I said, my whakapapa is from India, so I will be speaking in Sanskrit, but I invite everyone to join in their own language, and just to clear the space for a great chat at the moment. So, Vakratunda Mahakaya, Suryakoti Samaprabha, Nirvignam Kurumedeva, Sarvakarye Shusarvada, which just means we salute our Supreme Lord Ganesha, who has a curved trunk and whose radiance is equal to 1,000,000 suns. May you bless all our endeavors and remove all obstacles from our path. Just clearing the space and welcoming our panelists. So I will turn it over to these guys who have written the articles for today's chat to introduce themselves. And I can see a couple of introductions coming in the chat as well. So we're hoping that you guys share who you are. But I'll start off with Nikki.
Kia ora. Thank you, Tanya. That was absolutely beautiful. Ko Nikki Takawingoa. I am current chair of Korowai Tupu and super passionate about the mahi that we do to professionalise youth work in Aotearoa. I'm also in my day job EO for the New Zealand Council of Christian Social Services, so lots of advocacy and lobbying, and also currently super privileged to be on the board of Sticks and Stones, working towards a bully-free Aotearoa, and super excited to be hanging out with the amazing Jono and the incredible Morgan.
Morgan, you'd like to go next?
Awesome. Kia ora everybody. Ko Morgan Tukunga, ko Tūwharetoa rau ko Tainui ko Te Rarawa oku iwi. This is my beautiful papakai marae from Tūwharetoa. One of the aunties finally got a good camera and took a photo, so that's quite nice. Obviously it's right under Tongariro, so the snow is strong. Currently I work at an organisation called Problem Gambling Foundation, PGF. I'm a health promoter, so I work with the communities in Wellington region to make sure that they're aware of problem gambling and the harm it causes. Yeah, that's me.
Oh, we'll head over to Jono.
E mua lawa ne sili inga male ana le male lofa male whaloa i tatou atua. Au te whatalofa atu pa ia male malu tatou au le ngei lo ingo i o Ngākau Selu au te saume au ki langi sisifo o lo ka male Samoa lo ki ngā o le palangi talofa lava. So kia ora mai tātou. My name's Jono. I am the practice lead in an organisation called Te Ngākau Kahukura, and our work is around building in capacity and competence around rainbow communities within youth development. So yeah, great to be here this morning and keen to get into it.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. And I think if anyone's ever read the articles at the moment, we know we're in for a good chat and we're going to be learning heaps. And I also want to invite everyone in the attendees to post some questions if you do have them. I'll be happy to direct them to our panelists as well. And I just want to start with getting to know everyone that's here as well. So I put a question to the panelists saying, what's your favorite thing about lockdown? Because I know lockdown's hard and we've all done it tough, and you know we're trying to find the right reason for why we're doing this, but I think there's something good about lockdown as well. So I invite the panelists to share what they think about it, and please feel free to add it into the chat as well. Nikki, what did you think?
I was going to say, in the interest of us not all staring blankly at each other, I had to think really hard about that. But one thing that I have noticed, I'm a mum of an 11-year-old, and I love the not rushing around. Like, I love all the cool activities and things he's involved with, but that kind of, we're not having to race to hockey and then racing to netball and then racing to drama and then, you know, the next thing. So, and totally love not having to pack lunch boxes. Oh, amazing.
Love it. Someone's put on the chat going sweatpants, and I was like, I was told that you should say, you're not allowed to say sweatpants, but you know, that's fine. We'll let it slip through. Cool. What about Jono and Morgan? What do you guys think?
I've really enjoyed being more adventurous with my cooking. When it's in like total lockdown, you know, you have to eat every meal at home. So I've been like, I made my own like beef satay the other day. I made my own Turkish kebabs the other day. Sorry, excuse my cat. She's very needy.
Yes, this is what we needed.
So yeah, that's what I enjoyed.
Amazing.
I love seeing everyone's pets on Zoom, just to leap in.
I know, I was like, this is perfect Zoom gold moment.
Of course, Alaska had to come and take over like the entire show, right?
So rude, so rude. I'm so sorry.
So I'm currently in lockdown up here in Tāmaki Makaurau, up at level 4, and it's hard. It's not the most enjoyable thing, and I don't recommend it for long periods of time, but amongst all of the kind of trying to navigate everything and figure out everything, it has been nice to have a little bit of extra time to do some kind of stock take work. What am I doing? Where do I want to be? How am I doing? What do I need as well? So and I recognize it's a total luxury for some people as well. So it's a place of privilege, but at the same time, it's quite enjoyable to be able to have some of that critical reflective space that isn't also then like boxed in by run around do 1,000,001 things as well.
That's so true. And I think that's the whole goal of this, is that, you know, we're all trying to find something in that, and this is a good stock take. And as youth workers, I'm pretty sure everyone will know, you know, you're trying to find the light in everything, and I'd say we're pretty good at it, but you know, it's always a challenge too. I think I'll just go straight into it and say, you know, all your articles were an amazing read. There was so much to learn from everyone. And I can see, you know, a lot of people saying they're still in lockdown too, but you're all doing excellent, mahi. Morgan, I'm going to actually turn to you. And when I read your article, you know, your story, and you were so vulnerable and actually, you know, so open about your whole experience. It takes, you know, just one person, as you said, to transform your journey into something. And that person was Jono for you. And I just want to turn and say, how do you see that happening in youth work and right now in your space or anywhere else in your experience?
It's a great question. I want to point out, was Jono and many more. Jono in that space, definitely, but like, where's my further along? Because I know there are people who are like, excuse me. So right now, because I'm in the gambling space, this is a whole new space for me, and I have been in it for 2 years now, and no one has mentioned the rainbow community at every conference, every meeting, every gamble jam I've been to. So for me, I feel like I'm in that space of like, I could be that one person to change this kōrero, because no one's having this conversation. So I'm quite nervous, actually. I'm like, how do I make sure that this is done right? How do I bring in the rainbow community, the gambling sector, and like marry them together? So I'm using a lot of social media, as we probably all are, getting to know people from both sectors in a more like, social media way, and seeing if we can connect just more, or other than just like a catch up via Zoom. I'm also trying to, talk to the big leagues, like people in the Ministry of Health, which is terrifying for me. I'm not that kid. Nobody asked me to do that mahi. Like, so having to be the kind of the front person to do this it's quite nerve-wracking, but really excited. So, I see a big part of it is social media. I see a big part of it is like being the first person to have those conversations is another one. I hope that answered your question.
Of course. I think you're coming from the best space because you're coming from lived experience, and you've got someone that took you through that journey, and now you're trying to be that person that's taking the next generation through that journey as well. So I think you're coming with skills that people will train for, but you're never going to know until you walk a mile in their shoes. I think I'll turn over to Jono and say, that people as yourself and the others that were part of Morgan's journey and that do this mahi every single day, to be part of journey is so, takes a certain character to share your story with somebody so that they can resonate with that. And it's for the benefit of someone else. So what advice would you give to our youth workers and our youth champions that are trying to create that space? Hopefully, that's learning from Morgan and it's an ongoing relationship. But how do you channel that and say, I want to create space with somebody else?
That's a really great question around creating space, and I think it's one that we don't talk about enough because it's a framing that we always get thrown at us as youth workers or anyone in social service spaces at all. Create a space, hold a space, but no one really describes what is holding a space and what is creating a safe space or fostering a safe and inclusive environment. And it's one of the things that's been frustrating me recently, actually, around space. So I grew up with Morgan in the space. As much as I was like, hey Morgan, do this, hey Morgan, try this, I was also at the same time going, I don't know what I'm doing either, and trying to figure out alongside. So that's I think a really key thing is to be able to fundamentally, it's about being real with the people that you're serving. You as a youth worker are getting paid to or volunteering to say, I want to hold this space. But at the same time, there's only so much that you can learn by being taught something. The rest kind of happens on the job and becomes experiential. And I think it's really important that when we're going on these journeys with our young people, that we acknowledge we're on those journeys just as much as practitioners. No matter how long you've been practicing for, there's always more to learn, and it's always going to be in ways that you probably least expected. So acknowledging that I am human, I don't know all of the things, but I'm willing to kind of stick it out and be there and kind of be like, sweet, let's learn together. That's, I think, some really good first steps into starting to answer the question around how to create space.
Well,
and the other part of that,
go on.
I guess the other part to that is being able to go, I don't know if your idea works, but like, let's see what happens and let's work together around that. Like, cool, we can, as a practitioner, I know that I have to hold all of the information and the knowledge around practice, right? But it's not my responsibility to kind of keep pushing that stuff out on the people I'm serving. And so at the same time, it becomes that balance of continuing that professional development side of things, and also just going, you know what, let's try that, let's do that, see what happens. So I think that's kind of the key part there. It's really hard to speak out because it really is experiential.
Is it also, Jono, that to a kind of Tainui relationship doesn't exist in a vacuum? Like you in your totally. Own broader relationships will be to another Tainui, and all of those interwoven youth sector connections or outside of the youth sector.
Totally. It's where you start really drawing into what does it mean to be a whānau.
And I think I'd say that, as Morgan and you writing this article together as well, there's things that you guys would have had to reflect on together it's interesting to see how that comes out in that article as well. So is there something that was, you know, that was a main point in that as collaborators that you said, no, we have to make sure that that's in there, or that's, you know, our key message in this? So as a duo, what would you say?
A big part of it I wanted to make sure was shared, and I know Jono did too, was about how for a long time, if you were a competent queer who could speak in front of people and not be nervous, that you were kind of like pushed to the front, even if you weren't ready in your own identity or your own like development. There was kind of like these like star queer kids, and like all of us now who were kind of pushed to the front all like get together and be like, that was so intense, like we were 16 and talking at conferences and like running workshops, like it was a lot, and there wasn't a lot because being young and queer, you know, wasn't cool for a while. Having these like, you know, kids who were confident in themselves in high school, it was exciting for our facilitators and our mentors, and to kind of attain a kind of relationships they wanted to build. But it definitely took an impact, and I think that was something we really wanted to share, was like, we need to be making sure we're looking after our kids. Like, yes, let's have them at the front speaking, but let's make sure we wrap around them, we support them, we're not pushing them to a link that they burn out. That's one point that I was like super
amazing. And I think that ties back so well to what Jono said, is that, you know, creating space is one thing, but how do we actually look after that space is such a massive thing, and it's the people that are creating it and actually coming into that space as well. So, you know, this hui and this kōrero is a space too, but we're ensuring that, you know, people are actually getting something out of it, and then you know, the three of you are having time to sort of debrief on what you're saying as well, and it's your, you know, knowledge and your experience that you're giving to each other. I think I will turn to Nikki and ask, you know, as I've already told you, I've nerded out big time on your article, and there's just so much that I didn't know about the history of what youth work was like in New Zealand, and what it's, you know, where it's come from and the hard yards that's gone into it. And I think if anyone else nerds out like me, I'd say encourage them to, you know, look at the Harry Shearer's pathway to participation, and look at that model and sort of see it's just the most simple, basic conversation that you can have with a young person, how we can take that to the, you know, the upper levels as well. So I'd ask for you is, what are the key features of the relationship development and formation in youth work?
How long have we all got?
Loaded, I know.
Yeah. My problem is I used to teach this stuff. I love teaching this stuff. This was all my favorite stuff to teach. And, you know, it's such an amazing rabbit hole, the journey of youth work in Aotearoa and in our really unique whakapapa. There are all of these different flashpoints to my mind, that shaped and formed youth work over time. And participation is a whole other conversation, and I'm just going to be really naughty and park that, because I would point everyone to Kaiparahuarahi too, the amazing kind of mic drop final word at that point in time article on whaiwahitanga that Rod and Sarah and Hannah wrote, because Harry Shearer himself exists in this ecosystem of people that talk about pathways to participation and what participation can look like. But personally, I'm a total history nerd. I always have been. I understand the world through where we have come from, and I love that whakatauki, ka mua, ka more, explore the past because it shapes our future. And for me, I can't know where I am in the world if I don't know what happened first. So knowing the journey that youth work has taken to get to today completely underpins my understanding of youth work. And one of the really unique features for me is that, unlike other social services or education or all these other outside along sectors that we sit beside and within, we've been really responsive to things rather than reactive. Something happens in society and youth work's quietly there doing what is actually needed, doing that through a relational lens, being that person for that young person and being alongside them exactly how they need and what they need at that moment. And that's why for me, youth work will always be connected to sociology rather than any of the other ologies that are out there, because it's something that happens and responds to functions and factors of our societies. And I think it's really crucial that we acknowledge that, because we've got some big questions coming up for youth work in the coming decades. We need to both understand our place in the world, but also choose what that's going to look like as we step forward. And to some extent, that's why we pulled together this version of Kaiparahuarahi, was to say, let's all get clear on what our understanding of youth work is and acknowledge that that will be different for everyone, but be really strong in knowing who we are and what we stand for and boundarying ourselves in our sector. And then we can have some of these harder conversations around all sorts of other aspects of youth work that are cropping up and that are coming up.
Absolutely. And I think that's so great that, you know, it ties into what Morgan was saying before about being put into that position when you're not quite confident about, you know, yourself or what you actually have to say. And that's forcing people to be responsive. But I mean, I'm giving credit to my sector and saying youth work is really good at that. But yeah, when it comes at looking at it as a whole picture, we are going to have to set those boundaries for ourselves so that we know we're doing a fantastic job. And I mean, I invite Morgan and Jono to even say anything to what Nikki's just said as well in your capacity. So yeah, I mean, all of you guys tie in so well together. And I think, you know, people will resonate with where they've come from and what they're bringing to it as well. I just wanted to pose a question to all of you and to the audience as well and say, a great youth worker always carries a blank, and fill in the blank. We've had some interesting answers to these things, so I'm digging to see what's coming up. Anyone can open it up.
Go on, Jono.
Jono looks like he has an answer, but he doesn't want to tell us.
I'm trying to think, like, not what 20-year-old me would have said, what 27.
There's no wrong answer.
What are your thoughts, Nikki?
I thought of 3 things, and they're all super nerdy and they're all super teachery, and I'm actually fine with that.
That's so cool. It's fine.
So post-its.
Okay.
Youth workers can't live without post-its. Every youth worker, anything I've ever gone to, at some point someone goes, oh, have we got some post-its? Let's just get the post-its out. We'll put some post-its up, you know. And Jane's into teaching people how to peel post-its correctly is totally iconic to the youth work sector. So post-its. Whiteboard markers. I started my career in play therapy. I'm a fully trained play therapist, and whiteboard markers are amazing because when you're trying to build intentional relationships, sometimes silly and naughty are great, and whiteboard markers can be scribbled all over windows and desks and walls and all sorts of cool places and then rubbed off later. And code of ethics. Any good youth worker has and knows their code of ethics.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I didn't know there was a right way to peel post-its.
There is a
One moment, caller.
Oh no! I feel like I'm gonna get told off by Taiohi. They're gonna come at me.
She's got her post-its.
I have, but I can't get it to work on the Zoom. You don't pull. You peel from the side.
Okay.
And then the
doesn't
glue
curve. Oh my gosh!
It does something to the way glue works.
Okay.
There's some physics thing.
Thank you for changing my life.
Yes, ASMR.
Yeah.
Again.
There we go. They're joining in and they're telling us how to do it. That's so true. Jono, what would you like to share, since you seem to be thinking to yourself?
The professional G-rated version would be, which is I know exactly what Morgan's thinking as well. The two things that actually are coming to mind would be your phone, so that you can entertain either yourself or young people with YouTube, or have song battles with whatever music is on your phone / Spotify / YouTube. And the second one would be coffee. Just coffee. You just need to always have coffee. And that's mostly for the youth worker to be alive.
Yeah. I was going to say,
say
like, our younger rangatahi already have a lot of energy. We put them on coffee. We're going to need double shots. So, you know, that's fair point. What about yourself, Morgan?
I would say my wallet. Like, I feel like just getting them out of whatever space we're in. A lot of the kids who I used to work with were kind of high risk. And so being in one space and seeing people around can be quite, like, make them feel vulnerable. So where I used to work was on K Road, and then I worked in Mount Eden. So there's lots of like good places to just go and sit. So do that. Go make sure you've got some money, get a kai, get some coffee, get a drink, something that they can focus on while they talk as well, because that always helps. It's like, I'm not just staring at you, waiting for you to tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. But we're like eating our pie and talking about how the pastry, and
That's so true. Anyone that knows me, even like 1%, knows that kai is so important to me. So I'm just like always got snacks in my bag. When I was at a school, my office had snacks. When I'm at the office over here, it's got snacks. There's just, the car is filled with like muesli bars and everything. So snacks are life, like 100%. But I mean, it's cool to see there's a couple of people that are saying petty cash and lollies, and rangatahi need kai as well. So yeah, you need to feed yourself, and then so that you can feed other people too. So that's my little catchphrase for today. I'll head back to Morgan and sort of put a very sort of loaded question, but and feel free to like correct me on this, but I'm sort of a cynic, so that's why I wanna hear your opinion on this. And often we see a lot of like tokenism and tick boxing in higher level agencies and government bodies, with, you know, things like preferred pronouns being added into signatures, and you know, giving things Te Reo Māori name, or, you know, social club or like cultural club or things like that. I always take that with a grain of salt, because I always want to dig and see who's actually leading those things and what is the purpose of having it. But how do you feel about that contributing to youth work and development, and I guess how we would have to, as youth workers in the space, interact with those agencies?
So that's a great question. I think like I always check who's running it, who's behind these things. If it's some random white guy who's like, this would look good, then I'm gonna write it off. I think also when we are doing these like rainbow groups or Pacific groups or people with disability groups, we have to make sure there's like a vision and a purpose of it. It's not just so that this organization looks like it's amazing. Like, there will be results, there will be recommendations, there will be something coming from it. I think these bigger organizations that I won't name because that's pretty shady, that have like a workshop on safety with rainbow people, I think it's a joke, to be honest. I think when we have spaces, sorry, I'm quite critical about this stuff.
Come join the club. Join the club.
But I feel like it could get better if the people behind it are real, have like a realness to them. If it's not just like we want to get something out of these people, it's like we want to support our communities. And I think some organizations are doing a really good job. I know in my organization, we have a person who solely works just to make sure we're culturally safe, and anyone can access her at any time, and she's incredible. And we're changing, looking at changing our Māori name, and we had a huge hui. Every single person's involved, our admin person's involved, to make sure, like, why are we doing it? What does that mean? Who did we get our old Māori name from? You know, do we need to go and connect back with them and see if it's okay? Like, there's all this like questions, this culturally safe, spiritually safe space that everyone's allowed to have a voice, Māori, non-Māori. So I do see people doing it right, and that gives me lots and lots of hope.
That's great. And yeah, I mean, like I say, you know, there's the right way, and then you can be a little bit critical about this as well. And I think that's where we're coming and doing all this, you know, advocacy work as well. And I'm going to actually turn to Nikki and say, what is your experience in, because you're doing that higher level advocacy with government as well. And I do the same in our work over here. So I do get quite cynical about it sometimes, to see that who is actually running it and what are they actually doing with that.
Yeah, I think it's first of all understanding that it does take time, and that just like youth work, a lot of that shift and change happens through relationships. So I'm always really committed to being very honest, but trying to do that in a way that makes space for collaboration and for compassion. So when it comes to trying to, you know, be the voice of young people within government, or be the voice for the member organisations that I serve, or for the people that we represent, I'm also really conscious of creating spaces for them to be able to speak where that's useful. And I think that's really key, back to Jono and Morgan's article, is creating those spaces, but ensuring they are safe spaces for those people. And I think that sometimes that's where being an ally can be really useful, because it's quite easy for me from my position of power to stomp in, say what needs to be said, bang a few heads together and create that space that it's then possible for other people to be heard in. And that's really important to me. But mostly, using what time and what access I have to create time and access for other people, because I don't want to be in 20 years' time still the conduit through government back to young people. My ideal is young people being a no-brainer for government to be speaking directly to.
100%. And I think every consultation that I have gone to is just the same thing. I'm like, hey, let me come and host, like, come, I'll host you, you know, talk to the people that you actually are doing this work for. I can't speak for everyone. I can't speak for young people. I'm not young anymore. You know, it's it's people that we're doing this work for. They actually want to say their own stuff. So let's just come and speak to them directly.
And really importantly, not just the easy ones, you know, just the ones that are confident to do this, or that are articulate, or that, even worse, are going to say what people want to hear, you know, and acknowledging that those young people are there in that space on their own merits, with their own opinions. I did consultation not long ago around changes that are going to happen in local government, and I said to the people, please, 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 please stop giving young people skate parks to design. They are so much more than a skate park. Both and, you know.
Wow.
So tokenism.
That's so true. And that's Reno reflects back, and again, on creating that space in a safe way, and what do we actually do in that. There's no point in just bringing somebody in and just saying whatever they want to hear. It serves no purpose if you're not creating a space that's safe enough for anyone to come in, and you're not cherry picking the statements.
And it's an arrogance. We seem to think there's some magical age that people flip over and suddenly they have something useful to add. And I will get off this high horse in a minute, but
stay on it. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us going. But no, young people are as valid and as relevant and as smart and as incredible and as diverse as any group of so-called grown-ups. That's so true. Hey, my nephew was teaching me how to use the iPad when he was 3, so I can't really say anything more than that. I'll turn to Jono for a bit and just talk about that Tuakana Tēnā relationship that you guys have mentioned a couple of times already, but was such a big part of your article as well, and how you're seeing that as a strength to indigenizing youth work and youth development. And that you know, you talked about how you learn from each other. So you have mentioned it before, but you know, I'm always looking to learn from others as well. So I talk to my friends that work as economists, and they work as lawyers and all this other stuff, and I'm like, don't tell me more, I want you to explain it to me. So how do you see that as the thing that's going to get us through?
I want to draw on that whakatauki that Nikki brought up around ka mua ka muri, because I think that's a really important way to think about when we think about indigenizing youth work. There's a whole bunch of processes that go in there, and when we want to talk about, y'all saying you're cynical, I'm cynical as well. Sometimes very cynical. And I think one of the big things here is to remember that the systems that we're in often dictate the way that we practice. So when there are systems that are oppressive, that get in the way of people actually, cynics are known, sorry, I just saw that. But there are systems that are oppressive or that don't see people for who they are, and rather that see people for what they can produce, or their usefulness in society or in the world. All of a sudden, we're starting to move into, and apologies, here's the cynical high horse stuff, is that's when we starting to look at patriarchal, capitalist, Western Enlightenment space kind of perspectives that at the end of the day don't actually help, don't do anything useful for our young people, because they're not offering space for growth and development. When I have a look at the code of ethics and a lot of the articles that actually pop up in Kaiparahuarahi, right from Kaiparahuarahi 1 through till now, the basis of things like mana Taiohi is indigenous. And we can make it even more indigenous by the way that we practice and interpret and understand those concepts that live in that document. And in the same way, all of that indigenous knowledge is us bringing the brilliance of our ancestors through into the contemporary times. One of the Tuakana Tēnā model is one thing, and I think in the grand scheme of things, it's one small part that requires the full context around it to be understood, for it to be understood to be used adequately. So yes, there's big systems change stuff that needs to happen in order to facilitate youth work to be done indigenously. But also at the same time, there's a whole bunch of us out here doing youth work indigenously, right? We know what it looks like in our communities, and at the end of the day, we get on the ground, we do the work.
Yeah, 100%.
I think more writing needs to be done about it. I think I would love to see more of our kaimahi getting out there and writing about their experiences, and sharing that experience with their youth worker communities as well, not just necessarily through Kaiparahuarahi, but through like write a blog, start an Instagram, and start sharing your experiences of what bringing your knowledge in who you are into how you practice. Yes, there's so many more things I could say. Sorry, Nikki, did you want to say something?
No, that was
Tautoko, all of that, friend. No,
that is so great. I think that
sorry, the other thing I would say is
go on.
And insist on that knowledge, you know, that when Mana Taiohi was developed, there was this amazing 20-year literature review that went alongside it that built the framework that became Mana Taiohi. And there's 20 years worth of New Zealand rich Aotearoa based research and evidence and stories and amazingness, but every course you enroll in teaches you about weird white men. those Western educated, industrial, rich and democratic,
Yep.
Erickson, bloody Piaget, whoever. I can do a full 20-minute Erickson rant, so I won't. But yes, tell our stories, capture our stories of what's happening right now for the future, but insist that when you have to be told stories and you build your own kete of knowledge, that comes from Aotearoa. We don't want to wind up like other sectors who literally had to have inserted into legislation their ability to be culturally capable. We already know how to do this, so let's lean into the stuff that helps us explain that to other people.
100%. Oh my gosh, there were so many things I have written down, like as you guys are talking, and I'm like, I can't talk to everything.
So
Jono, yeah, go on. Of course, give me more.
On that note, let's also not be boxing in our kaimahi either. And so when we're talking about systems change and all that stuff, the other major thing to remember is that we are complex beings. Our identities reflects that complexity and are really nuanced as well. And we bring a wealth of knowledge, both in practice and in like lived experience, into the way that we do the work, right? So, you know, and Morgan can talk to this as well. I'm not just a rainbow person. I'm also a Samoan. I'm also a whole lot of other things that my brain can't pull up right now. I got as far as Samoan and was like, no, that's enough. But my cultural knowledge as a Samoan ties in with my experiences as a queer person in 21st century Aotearoa. By being born here, my experiences are different to a Samoan back in Samoa. As a Pacific person from West Auckland, my experiences are different to a Tongan from, say, Rotorua. You know, that those are all valuable experiences to bring to it, and then you layer in the how they interact with each other from the intersectional lens. That's a vital part of how we continue to move forward as well.
That's amazing. I don't think, I can ever top that. So I'm just gonna like reiterate some of the stuff that you guys have said, because I love the fact that you said, Jono, what people are not what they are, but what they can produce. That's, how people the system is looking at our rangatahi right now. And I am constantly fighting that, because I am always saying, they're not just here for your benefit. They're actually here to contribute, and they're actually here to have, an actual voice. And if you actually make the time and effort to listen, get off, that arrogance and ignorance, and you can actually see what's going on in the middle of that. Yes, parfaits have layers too. That's so true. And I'm same thing with don't box them in, because we're all trying to fit into that structure that we're working in right now. And yes, structural and systemic change takes a lot. And I was actually gonna, the next question is gonna be to Nikki and say, one of the quotes in your article says, we need to stop seeing young people as a problem to solve. And it was saying, how can you speak to that in the current systemic policies around youth work? And I think both of you sort of touched on that a little bit, but I mean, feel free to add more.
Look, I think my view right now is burn the system down. The system's broken. It's not working. Why are we still playing in it? The current system that we all live and operate in stood up when I was 7, and I'm possibly the oldest person on this call. We're well past the point where we need to change the system. The system will inherently always see young people as something to be fixed or shaped or sold, so long as we have the current system. I mean, the current system whakapapa was further back than 1987, and it was an expression of the industrial age, where people are just products to be shaped, moulded, used, put on a conveyor belt and sent out to work and operate. Youth workers have always been disruptors. Youth workers have always shoved off the machine and done what needed to be done. But we're reaching a crucial touch point where so many ways within our society, we can see that the system itself is perpetuating the brokenness. The fact that the gap between the richest and the poorest is so incredibly high, and that poverty line keeps creeping up, and that more and more people, regardless of the effort or the input they put into the machine, can't get out of it, is just insane. And I'm a bit obsessed at the moment with a writer called Max Harris, who talks about New Zealanders having these values that we like to express and show to the world, but they're not replicated in how we actually operate and function as a society. And so we need to be really clear on what our values are and build our politics and build our systems and build our ways of being around those values. And I think the youth sector has done that really, really strongly. I was talking to boring people at the terrace about the shift from the YDSA to Mana Taiohi, and that the youth sector was so unique in that when the YDSA was released, we really took it as our own and we built it into who we were, and we shaped it into an expression of our identity with knowledge of the inherent limitations in that. And so when it came time to rebuild Mana Taiohi, we had to have a grief and a letting go of the YDSA before we could fully accept Mana Taiohi and express it. But we've shifted from this very then rigid, here are 9 things that happen, or 6 things with other bits that fall out of it, to these are the principles that will underpin how we are with each other and with young people. And that's important. And so yet again, the youth sector is being the example of how a system could change and be reshaped. So the system will continue to see young people as problems to be solved, as long as the system is trying to create a society based on the current set of values.
Morgan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's hard. I think if I want to talk about the rainbow community specifically, youth work has been in everything we've done from the beginning, because the way these organizations or groups started was because someone saw a need and then put the call out and kids came coming. So rainbow communities have been doing youth work from the get-go, but they haven't always been qualified. So that has been one of our downfalls, I think, is having lots of practice but no theory. And the theory is important. Like, I have my qualifications in youth work, and I can say that it is definitely important to understand that theory. We also have spaces where young people or people in our rainbow communities who are young-ish, because young people for us could be up to 28 to 30, just because when you come out, you know, even if you are 27, you're still a baby gay or a baby queer, because you're just finding yourself. So we've got quite a bit of a spectrum when it comes to young people. I feel like the rainbow community, with empowering them to include the theory within their work, is something that still needs to be done. It's still happening. It's still something we need to learn. Where I feel like other sectors have the theory but not the practice, and that's where it's learning. I had a YDSA and I loved it when I studied. I had the code of ethics. I used to make fun of social workers and say our code of ethics is way better than theirs, because it is. And so I definitely love and live those books. Mana Taiohi has really changed the game, I feel like, because I was like, this is very white. All these other documents were quite white, where now we've got the Mana Taiohi, which gives us that some cultural aspect to it. So yeah, it's helpful. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Well, you're getting snaps from Jono for sure. So
I think so.
And I think that's been, like, as a newcomer to this field and sort of someone still learning, and I'm looking at, you know, education sector as well, and how it's looking at our Indigenous and ethnic populations. I see that regardless of all these structural, you know, barriers and things, there's work that's being done that cannot take away from, you know, the greatness that it's creating in our young people. It's people like yourselves, it's people like, you know, people that I meet every single day, that are just getting on with it. And I think, you know, as academics and people that are bringing all this knowledge in to create you know, things like mana Taiohi, and also doing the work to create those frameworks and theories that we're looking for that actually serve our purpose. At the end of the day, it's that hard yards. Just get out there, get in your car, and, you know, go see young people, talk to young people, take them out, and that is transformative change that nobody can take away from us as a sector. So I applaud everyone that's doing that, and I invite people to just keep doing that, because you guys are great, you know, creating just the best change that we can ever see. I appreciate that we've gone a little bit over time, but thank you so much for everyone to actually stay around here. I just want to finish off with a little bit of hopefully everyone's heading out to a nice lunch and getting some, you know, kai in them to fuel the work that you're still doing. So what's for lunch, guys, on the panel? No?
Ham and
That's
tomato
a later
sandwich.
problem. Yeah. That's a little bit later problem, or not hungry yet?
I'll probably have like a berry smoothie. I'm not that hungry.
Very nice, very balanced.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a surprise when I walk into the house and try and find out what's in the fridge / cupboards.
Perfect.
Leftovers save lives, just saying. Leftovers are the best thing to do. Look, I can't have asked for a better, you know, panel and better discussion. I think, you know, I like I said to all of you, I had 10 tabs open before when I was reading the articles, and I've written down 4 or 5 more things to go look up, including authors and texts and all these other things that I want to know. So hopefully everyone's got the same that I have from this. I just want to say a massive thank you to Taiohi for hosting us and for creating this space and actually, you know, letting us do what we want with it. And to everyone that sort of joined in as well. We'd love to see you back at our next one next Friday. The articles are available online and you can go have a read, and I think it's just the best thing. I will close off with another karakia as well, just to clear our space and send us out with a little bit more light. And I invite everyone to join in the way they want to see fit as well. So, Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May there be happiness in all. May there be peace in all. May there be completeness in all. May everything prosper. Om, peace in me, peace in nature, peace in the universe. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend ahead, and look after yourselves. Thank you to everyone for joining in, and all those in Tamaki Makaurau, we're sending a little bit more light again to your way. And panelists, thank you so much for joining in. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Kia ora, Shannon here. We hope you enjoyed that Kōrero Café featuring 3 of the authors that have contributed to the latest Kaiparahuarahi defining youth work. You can purchase this issue and more at our website www.arataiohi.org.nz/resources.